Today we're talking about how the food on your plate could help protect your eyesight, why your weekend workouts may be more powerful than you thought, and how the beauty and impact of just 10 minutes outside can shift your mood and mindset. This episode brings the science and the strategy to your waking minutes. We experience 1,000 waking minutes on average every day. How are you spending yours? I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you're listening to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I can't wait to connect with you here with practical ways to eat well, move daily, and be healthy, to optimize every waking minute you live for a happier, healthier life. Thank you for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. Let's get started.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes. I'm on my way, yes. It's gonna be okay, yeah.
Welcome back to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and I'm grateful that we can share some of our waking minutes together today. This is one of our Science You Can Use episodes, where we take a few meaningful studies and explore what they actually mean for your real life. Because science isn't just about the headlines and the hype or for health professionals. It can really live in our own kitchens, in our own calendars, in our mindset and our mood, and within our habits. And it's even better if it's something we can actually do something with, the science that is. And I've been reading quite a few studies lately, as always, and there's a few that have really piqued my interest, so I hope you'll find them interesting too. These episodes are where I talk about a few studies that I've sort of bumbled into, and it's designed to bring the research to life and within your reach, our reach together. So it's science to strategy, I like to think about, and hopefully you can see how science does evolve and it's not all hype and headlines. And hopefully there's a little humanity within it too. And I always want to put it into practice. So I want you to leave saying, like, I could see myself doing that in a few moments of my waking minutes of a day. So today we're going to explore 3 recent studies that caught my attention, and they might shape how you spend a few of your 1,000 waking minutes a little more intentionally. So first, we'll take a look at what we eat, sort of the eat well theme, and how something as simple and delicious as the Mediterranean way of eating, you don't have to live in the Mediterranean, as I've said before, in order to do that. Something as simple as delicious could support your vision. We're talking eyesight today over the long term. Then we'll move into movement, so our move daily, and how being a weekend warrior, a weekend bursts of exercise can actually offer surprising protection against chronic disease. And it sort of goes not against, but in contrast to some other thinking previously. So I wanted to bring that to you. And our third pillar, be healthy, eat well, move daily, be healthy. We're going to step outside. And I mean, literally, just 10 minutes in nature might offer big mental health benefits, including reduced stress and improved focus. Who couldn't benefit from that? 3 studies, 3 ways to make our minutes in our day work for us. And this isn't about pressure, but more about being thoughtful and in a get curious kind of way. So let's move into our studies. First is the Mediterranean diet and eye health. So this one surprised me a little bit. Not surprising that there's even more research that keeps building around the Mediterranean diet. But a recent study, a 2025, just this year's study published in Nutrients, found that people who followed a Mediterranean-style eating pattern had a 34% lower odds of developing macular degeneration. That's age-related vision loss, and that's the kind that affects our central vision, where people can't see the things as well or at all eventually, the things that are directly in front of them and that we start to see around the periphery. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Doc Rader, had macular degeneration called AMD. That's the acronym for it. And it really does start to compromise one's quality of life, especially if they've lived a life relying on their sight for so many things, as so many of us do. I remember so many impacts that came from it. And there's so many accommodations today, but we may have some clues at how to further reduce the risk, as this study is showing. This is not a small number I'm talking. That's the surprising part. It means that our food choices can quite literally help us see the future. I mean that poetically, but also literally, more clearly. So we can see the future and live in the future, seeing more clearly, potentially. Studies have shown that people who stick on a Mediterranean style diet, this was a systematic review and meta-analysis, so this is many studies compiled and analyzed, but these studies have shown that following this type of diet, they have a lower chance of their macular degeneration getting worse. So this is about progression as well. So in this review of reviews, which in effect helps synthesize and analyze the existing science and evidence on a topic, in this case, the relationship and potential link between the Mediterranean diet style eating patterns and the development of macular degeneration or the progression of it. What the researchers looked at were the case control studies and prospective studies where they ended up seeing and reporting significant differences and risk and odds ratios related to this. They looked back at the habits and they looked at the habits over time. And this comes from tracking cohorts of people over time. And they found these significant findings. The review of both types, so case studies look back and prospective studies sort of follow people over time, both showed significant benefits. There was a 23% lower risk from the studies that were tracking people over time moving forward, and even a greater 34% lower odds from the case-controlled studies. No matter what, even if that sounds confusing to you, like what's the difference? It's significant, statistically significant, scientifically significant, and it's a big relationship from something that we can do through diet and nutrition, and certainly worth trying. So why does this all matter? Well, my grandfather had macular degeneration, but it's one of the most common causes. And it's likely that you may know someone who also suffers from this diagnosis. And to slow its progression means big improvements, big staving off and maintaining quality of life over time. And it's one of the most common causes of vision loss as we age. And while many of us do think of eating for energy or skin or mood, digestion, heart health, all those, we might not always be thinking about eating for our eye health. And just to frame this up, statistics for you, there are about 20 million individuals in America, 40 and older, living with some form of age-related macular degeneration. I'm going to use the acronym AMD, but macular degeneration today. So, nearly 20 million by the most recent statistics I could find. And about 1.5 million of these individuals have advanced vision threatening from this condition. So it does progress. And what's interesting too is that the progression with age is so stark. In the age range between 40 and 44 years old, it's only about 2% that have AMD. But by the time individuals are 85 and older, about 46% is the statistic. And to frame it up yet another way, just to understand the impact, by age 75, about 1 in 3 people in the US will have some form of AMD, and 1 in 4, so about 25%, will have sort of the vision-threatening late stage form. So this is really important. What are some of the risk factors? Well, some of them are, The uncontrollable, like age, when you're over 50, it's a risk factor. There is family history, so genetics do play a significant role. So it's good to be aware if you do have family members who have diagnosis of AMD or who had AMD. Smoking. Smoking actually triples the risk of AMD. That is something you can control and have so many benefits that go beyond eye health. Being overweight or obese and having hypertension, high blood pressure, puts us at increased risk. And then there's poor diet. So especially ones that are low in antioxidants, think rainbow, think our produce, and low in omega-3s put us at increased risk. So what helped in this review of reviews? It wasn't just one food or superfood. It was a pattern. It was really about more fruits and vegetables, more of those good fats, the healthy fats like olive oil, nuts and seeds, fish, and fewer ultra processed foods. So let's think about that, incorporating more idea for our eye health. Roasted vegetables drizzled with olive oil. Think of a handful of walnuts or almonds, having that chia seed pudding, maybe incorporating more colorful salads and soups that are abundant in the produce, maybe some grilled salmon with lemon and herbs. Our herbs, our spices, dried and fresh, are abundant sources of antioxidants. These foods actually support the retina in our eye and they reduce inflammation. They're both important for eye health. So we're thinking about the antioxidant rich and the anti-inflammatory foods. So yes, that Mediterranean style plate that you might love already, it's helping more than your heart and more than your gut. It's also supporting your sight. Moving on to study number 2. We're going to be talking about the weekend warrior approach to working out. And amazingly, and I was a little surprised at this, it can still work wonders. Now, I know that any kind of exercise works, but there have been some concerns in the past on joint health, on recovery, on muscles when you go all out on the weekend or trying to get all your exercise in on the weekend. For example, if you're someone who counts your steps and maybe you set that 10,000 step goal, and we can talk about, how relevant that really is in terms of the actual number, but it's almost impossible to capture 70,000 steps just on the weekend and forget about the rest of the week. That's why we always talk about move daily and getting movement in and the recommendations to move your body throughout the week. But this study actually made me smile a little bit because real life is busy. And sometimes we need permission to let go of the all or nothing mentality or recognize that just some weeks it's not going to happen during our work time or our school week with our children or our own lives because of travel or other things. So a recent study that was published in Circulation from the American Heart Association followed over 100,000 adults and found that people who only worked out on weekends, so weekend warriors, I like to think of them, still had significantly lower risk of over 200 chronic diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, and even some types of cancer. So I want to repeat that again. People who just squeezed in their movement just on Saturday or Sunday, just once or twice a week, still reaped major benefits. So this really matters. Many people feel like they can't do it every day, and if they can't do it every day, it doesn't count. And I'm all about giving you credit for everything that you do. But this study actually said otherwise. It does all count. It said just what I like to know and believe, and that the research is building on. Everything counts. It validates those of us who do have irregular schedules or caregiving duties that come up, travel, just life. And it also shows us that being healthy isn't reserved for, the perfectly organized individual. So whether it's like a Saturday hike or a long bike ride or a couple hours of gardening, it counts. So in the recommendation to get 150 minutes or more of exercise a week, it could be done over the course of just a couple days. So this is about disease risk reduction. This isn't going to train you well for a marathon or give you new skills in performance per se, but it definitely counts towards reducing the risks of chronic disease. So, what are some things that you can try on the weekends or on those 2 days that you are reserving on a busy week? You might try scheduling a movement date once a weekend. So, sort of like an appointment that you protect with a friend, with a spouse, with a child, but a movement date, something you do. You might plan on doing something you really love that's moving, whether it's active gardening, dancing, swimming, playing at a playground with the kids. And if the weekdays just don't allow it this time, don't sweat it. Just let it be okay. Because when you're on purpose toward moving daily, it doesn't always have to be about structured exercise, as we've discussed before. And you can still protect your health. And it's not just ticking a box and saying, I got it done, but building it in meaningfully and purposefully in a way that's a little more gentle. So I really loved that study and wanted to share it with you today. The final study of today, study number 3, is another one that I've sort of been so excited to share. And it's about nature and how just 10 minutes in nature, more is welcome, but just 10 minutes in nature can boost our mental health. That may sound obvious, but hear me out here and listen to this one. It's powerful. I think it's like poetic. In a 2024 meta-analysis, they showed that just 10 minutes in a natural setting, so think a walk in the park, it could be just outdoors walking somewhere to get to somewhere else, sitting under a tree, even just being by an open window and maybe hearing the birds chirp, which I'm going to encourage you to do if you have birds around. This led to measurable improvements in mood, in stress levels, in focus and attention, and a lot more. 10 minutes. This was accidental exposure to nature, incidental exposure to nature, intentional exposure to nature, and they all matter. So let's do more of this on purpose. The researchers looked at studies that were water-based, that were outdoor wilderness activities, urban outdoors, so you can be in a city, at farms, at camps, when gardening, at walking, you name it. They all showed to be impactful. In fact, I want to read a quote from the paper. Analysis of all studies showed that affect, anxiety, cognition, depression, mental health, mood, negative emotions, quality of life, and stress all showed evidence, significant effect size, indicating the positive effect of nature exposure on these domains, end quote. That quote, analysis of all studies about affect, anxiety, cognition, depression, mental health, mood, negative emotions, quality of life, and stress, all showed positive effect of nature on these domains. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And in as little as just 10 minutes. That's incredible. So why does this matter? Well, I mean, the obvious reasons, but I want to set it for real for you today. In a world where we feel like everything has to be optimized or scheduled or ideal, it's nature that invites us to just simply be. Think about it. Nature, being outdoors, the air, the breath, the birds, the trees, anything around you. This really isn't about logging in the steps and your exercise. It's not about planning your meals and getting it exactly right. It's not about tracking stats and seeing how you're doing. It's really about restoration. Some have described this sort of as sips of nature, and I'm definitely among them now. And I love that idea because I've said this about movement also, like sips are a great way to think about small but purposeful ways to build moments into your day. Think about sips of water toward hydration, toward your goal. Sips. Just like we might sip our tea or our water, we can sip stillness, green leaves, sunlight. So think about opening your window and trying to listen for those birds, as I told you we would be thinking about. Think about stepping outside barefoot. Do you dare, in your yard for a few minutes? Some people love it, and some people haven't been barefoot in a long time, unless they're at the beach or something like that. Maybe take a call while you're outside. You could be walking among trees or on the street, or even just sitting outside. And even a 10-minute stroll without headphones and just being with the outdoors counts. So this is simple, and sometimes simple can be really profound. So those are the 3 studies. They each offer hopefully insights into how we might spend our waking minutes a little more intentionally. And of course, we can't fully generalize the findings beyond the study participants or what the researchers showed, but these practices are generally safe and worth considering. Plus, they really add to the growing body of research. Think of the Mediterranean diet. There's hundreds and hundreds of studies on the benefits to overall health. We've challenged the previous notion about weekend warrior exercise patterns, and we're highlighting what I think is inherently known, but I love when science shows what Mother Nature knows, the restorative power of nature. So 3 small science-backed practices and ideas you can try. Think about coloring your plate up. So the rainbow, the Mediterranean style, the olive oil, the leafy greens, the colorful avocado and tomatoes and carrots and watermelon as it comes in season and corn on the cob, all the good stuff. Think of beans and nuts and seeds. Eat with your eyes, in other words, and eat for your eyes. Remember to let your weekend workouts count. So stop disqualifying that or feeling bad about not getting in a workout during the week. The long walk or a family bike ride or just being active on the weekend, it all matters. And then take a 10-minute or more, but take a 10-minute nature break. Find your version. Maybe it's laying on your back on the green grass and looking at the clouds go by. Have you done that lately? Oh, I have such memories of that in the summertime. Enjoying breathing in the air, going by a water source like a lake or a river or the ocean, and enjoy that. And sip it in, almost like a sip of fresh water. So, as always, thank you for sharing some of your 1,000 waking minutes with me today. I hope this episode gave you something useful, not an overhaul by any means, but to inspire a few small, meaningful shifts. These moments, how we eat, how we move, and how we connect to nature, they're more than tasks. They're more than ticking off something on a to-do list. They're the ways we can build a well-lived day. 1 minute, one choice, one breath at a time, and they become cumulative over time. So if you found this episode helpful, I'd truly be grateful if you'd share it with someone who you care about. I'd love it if you'd share a kind review and subscribe if you haven't, so you won't miss any future episodes. You can always connect with me at wendybazilian.com or write me an email at 1kwm@wendybazilian.com. I love hearing from you. I'm Wendy Bazilian, your host of 1000 Waking Minutes. Eat well, move daily, be healthy. And until next time, be well. Thank you for tuning in to 1000 Waking Minutes. A huge thank you to our amazing collaborators, including our production and marketing teams, and Gabriela Escalante in particular. To the ultra-talented Beza for my theme music, my lifelong friend and artist, Pearl Price Photography and Design, to Daniel Ballantyne, Jen Nguyen, Joanna Powell, and of course my family, and everyone working tirelessly behind the scenes. And to you, our valued listeners, I so appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment, writing a review, and giving 1,000 Waking Minutes, that's us, a 5-star rating. And please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Please follow and stay connected at wendybazilian.com. And don't forget to share with your friends. Your support helps us grow and bring you more great content. Until next time, find some simple opportunities to optimize those 1,000 waking minutes each day.
I'm saying yes